Good evening and welcome to another episode of Article 27, Freedom of Expression. Today we will discuss the topic Environmental Community Movements in Armenia. Environmental movements are gathering great pace in Armenia today. All of us are aware of the environmental problems at Teghut, Tırçkan, and Mashtots Park. Of course, this movement is not new. The Armenian National Movement for Independence unfolded on the basis of an environmental issue. These movements have great significance throughout the world. But some issues remain unclear to us today. For example, who are the participants in these movements and what do they want? In that regard, I would like to ask the first question to one of the environmentalists present today, Arevik. Arevik, please explain the following. The young people who are giving so much time to these environmental activities, whether it is Tırçkan or Mashtots Park, don't they have anything else to do? Don't they work? How can they give so much time to this? Who is providing for them? Are they all from financially secure families?
It has to be said that these are usually quite busy people, much busier than one would imagine. But their ability to dedicate more time to such activities comes from their civic awareness and their thinking that something truly depends on them, that they can make a change and must therefore participate. This is the youth that brings change with it. Instead of leaving Armenia, it stays and changes the surroundings in which it must live, turning into what it wants. Almost everyone is really busy, but they find the time. Sometimes it is truly difficult to organize a sit-in protest 24 hours a day, or to risk one's well-being by trying to stop a moving vehicle. That is the biggest sacrifice.
My next question is to Mr. Khurshudyan. Are there any studies on the social composition of environmentalists in Armenia or on a global scale? I don't know about their composition in Armenia. I'm sure that such a study exists on a global scale, but I'm not familiar with it. However, let me note that the environmental movement and these issues have always existed, from the very day of the creation of humankind. Human activity harms the environment, and the environmental movements protect nature because nature belongs to us all, and it is our guarantor for the future. Environmental protection is a topic that can play a role in uniting society. Different social layers and classes of people can gather around a common value. In Armenia also, the movement at the end of the 80s, which turned into a political movement, was initially environmental in nature. But there is a big contradiction there. If it is of such great value that everyone shares it, where does the conflict come from? Why is everyone not protesting together at Mashtots Park? And in general, why is this issue still unresolved? Conflicts arise between businesses and the environmental movement, or between state policies and the environmental movement. Mr. Grigoryan, could you comment? On the one hand, this is a shared value. On the other hand, there is a specific conflict. How can one explain that? What do we mean by conflict? Conflict between whom? Different layers of society? Or is this a clash between society and the state machine? In reality, the state machine consists of people, and they too are a part of society. Naturally, there is the issue present here of the distribution and redistribution of wealth. If there is a society-society conflict, then you can approach the issue as a citizen and have your own individual position. In such cases, maybe sociological studies can reveal which parts of society have a different viewpoint. But when we have a specific clash between the social good and a private business, then the answer to your question is simple. There are people who are doing business there and are largely indifferent to the rights of the other members of society. And the other members of society who consider their social rights violated have the aim to protect public property. The contradiction is clear: private business and social good.
It looks like the issue of boutiques placed at Mashtots Park is never ending. The members of the This City Belongs to Us initiative and citizens concerned at the destruction of green space in Yerevan have been fighting for 2 months for the removal of the kiosks moved here from Abovian Street. That fight took the form of protests and demonstrations from the very beginning, and letters have been written to President Serge Sargsyan and Mayor Taron Margaryan. They are demanding an intervention into the current situation to prevent the destruction of the park and to create a specialized committee and stop the construction and renovation works as part of the Main Avenue project. However, as it is in all such cases, the demands of the protesters have not been satisfied yet again, but this time, the participants in the demonstrations and the citizens of Yerevan did not cow down and continued the fight, which has led to a result to some extent. The new section of the cafe located in Mashtots Park was removed. Although the city authorities had earlier assured everyone that everything was legal, the demolition of the structure began after the recent visit of the City Hall representatives. One of the activists clarified, "Our dear mayor is saying that all actions and decisions are legal. Today, one part of the structures are being deconstructed because that was a clearly illegal building, and we will continue to fight for the rest of this until everyone understands that any such construction in a public place is illegal. We will achieve all that through legal demands and demonstrations." Instead, under the watchful eye of the police, the builders are continuing the construction of the installed kiosks. The acts of protests were following one after the other, but neither side was willing to go to a compromise. We demand the deconstruction and removal of all kiosks and the added section of the cafe. Although there is no construction, our final demand has not been met, and our round-the-clock protests and demonstrations are continuing. Even March 8th turned into a unique event at Mashtots Park. This holiday began with a cycling event for the environmental activists and ended with their occupation of one of the elite boutiques. But seeing that the events were not unfolding in a positive way for them, the activists went to an extreme step, making the sit-in protest a round-the-clock demonstration. After all this, Prime Minister Tigran Sargsyan dedicated the whole section of his speech at the following government session, traditionally meant for the television audience, to the discussion of the Mashtots Park issue.
It is in our interest to have an atmosphere of harmony and agreement with our citizens on this issue. The first promise, which was given by City Hall, was to remove the kiosks on Abovian Street, which were not temporary but permanent kiosks. That promise was kept. Now the second promise, which we have noted in our decision, for our own information, is that these will also be removed after 3 years.
With this, the Prime Minister considered the discussion of the issue of the park closed. However, even in this case, the activists did not give up. Just recently, the environmental activists were preparing to deconstruct the kiosks at Mashtots Park with the help of some volunteers. The brigade that formed independently of the activists had expressed a readiness to remove the kiosks using their own resources. No deconstruction happened. The city authorities were given 3 days to negotiate and find a final solution for the park issue. But there has been no reaction yet.
I want to once again understand the driving force of your movement and its pace. I believe that there are some very interesting facts about your movement. For example, the movement doesn't have a leader. So how is it managed? Interestingly, they say that the movement and all its subunits, This City Belongs to Us and others, are in principle against any international grants. Is this true or not? Arevik, perhaps you could speak about that.
I would like to make a small addition to the previous question and say that there was a success with Dragon Park as well. And the fight for the Students' Park also managed to inject some energy in the environmental sector. I can say that since 2008, we have had a new kind of society and a more enterprising youth, which has begun different initiatives since 2008.
But how are you organized? Is it done through Facebook? How does that happen?
Of course, the Facebook effect is very useful for self-organization. But there are some limits in those cases, because often people only mention their approval of our movement by giving us a like. But they don't participate directly, and we are left alone.
But you said earlier that you do not feel particularly alone.
There was such a tendency in the beginning, but at this moment I can confidently say that the most popular protests at the moment are those of the environmental movements, and you cannot compare them to the Armenian reality and other protests.
In what sense can't you compare them? Are they smaller in number?
They receive smaller numbers of support from society. And I can say that we have up to 300, 400 supporters when we organize large events. The difference is that a movement with a new sense of purpose began after TurchCon. Because the effect of TurchCon was that we understood that the old methods that we were using, writing letters to official bodies, international organizations, organizing protests in Yerevan, going from door to door, were not effective. And that we must go and physically stop the tractors. There are no other alternatives left, and our experience has shown that this was the approach that worked. Unfortunately, we have reached the stage where nothing will change unless you put your health and safety on the line for the cause.
But there has to be someone, a leader or manager, at least to organize the course of the movement. How does your system work? How do you decide who stays at night and who goes? How does that process take place?
Facebook has a role. There are large groups in Facebook like Save Tehut, This City Belongs to Us, and Our City. There's also a working group of organizers, which includes the main people who are taking the responsibility and taking the process along.
How many people make up that group?
Probably around 30 people.
Those movements were also aiming for power, from what I've heard.
The movement generally avoids politicization in the sense of affiliation to a political party.
But you welcome the people with the hard hats who are from political parties. Doesn't that assume affiliation to a political party? Absolutely not. We are open to all political parties. Furthermore, we are ready to collaborate with them, provide information, and help them develop environmental programs. And if someone who belongs to a political party or a political force participates in an event of ours, and his participation stems from his intention to support an environmental movement and not from his party interests, then I see no problem with that. All right, thank you. But aren't the participants in the movement breaking any laws? Haven't any laws been broken by you to this day? I would like to express my disagreement with the idea of achieving success. The TurchCon victory that was spoken about was in fact an illusion of success, and that is in fact the problem. Activism is mainly a struggle. People try to fight, but there is a side that one does not see. I've heard various activists, and the reality within is different. There are invisible threads, threads of people's values, that allow the movement to spread, but this is transformed into a discussion in other places. Are those the threads that are used to move puppets? No, they're ties. Suppose Arthur and I share the same values. I'm not there, but seeing what Arthur has done, I transfer that to another person, and it becomes a dialogue, a large dialogue. A movement has more of a network nature. It is much larger in reality, and the activists are its visible part. The part that is ready for self-sacrifice, which can survive the cold nights outside, fight, and so on. TurchCon was an aesthetic victory in reality, not an environmental one. That waterfall was beautiful, so we decided to preserve it. The issue of hydroelectric stations in Armenia remains unresolved. It's as if we forgot about that problem and moved on to other issues. Success means solving a problem at its root, which simply needs a larger forum for discussion.
I would like to mention that it is often said that environmentalists are like the dead branches of a tree. That is the way in which the media tries to portray us. In reality, ours is a fight for property and rights. The longer those boutiques remain there, the better for us, because we will have the opportunity to raise the issue of public property and to outline a discourse or change the discourse in Armenia. And indeed, we organize events in that park every day so that the park has really become a public space, and there is a precedent of the return of a public space to the citizen. That is the direction in which our efforts are going.
Thank you, Arevik. So I can say a few words to summarize today's episode, and I would like to thank City Hall and the owner of that boutique for the awareness that has been raised. That is my childhood neighborhood, next to my childhood home, and it was in the most shameful of neglected states for many years after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It is not much better now. The area from the tunnels to the boutiques is in bad condition, but, at any rate, a buzz of activity has returned to it. We are all environmentalists, and we hope that Mashtots Park will be completely transformed. Thank you, and good night.